Are you a Too Opinionated subscriber? Did you know there's 15 million podcasts out there? And of those 15 million, only 38,000 have enough viewers to be listed on IMDb, the entertainment database. Of those 38,000, Too Opinionated is ranked number 82. Father and son team. Most of those podcasts that are ahead of us are the big companies, Disney, Marvel, Joe Rogan, those type of podcasts. We have over 600 episodes, actors, musicians, producers, directors, writers, anything that you could possibly want in the entertainment world, we're covering it. And we'd like your support. If you're not subscribed, it's easy to do and it's free. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Just go there and click that subscribe button. Helps us a ton. If you're listening, wherever you listen to your podcast from, subscribe there. It'll help us so much. And please go to imdb.com and check out our page. Look up the Too Opinionated Podcast, imdb.com, and just look around the page. It really helps us a ton. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for your support. Until next time, bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. So excited. Today, I've got media personality, author, Real Housewife of Toronto, Kara Alloway. So welcome, Kara.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I love the name of your podcast because that was my problem on Real Housewives. I was too opinionated.
You know, when my son and I started this podcast together, and at that time, he was on camera with me, but he decided he'd rather edit. He didn't really care for being on camera, but we went with Too Opinionated because we were thinking we would have that generational difference in opinion, and we would get on there and have good arguments. And it turned out we had the exact same opinion on everything. So,
oh, that's funny.
So
that's cute.
Technically, we're still too opinionated, but it's the same opinion.
But it comes from the same place. So that's
right.
Interesting.
So we still have good conversations when he comes on, but it's not really an argument like we envisioned when we started.
Got it. So it probably wouldn't make good fodder for reality television.
No, although we could probably do it. Just like reality TV might, kind of set stuff up to happen a certain way sometimes, we could do that.
Yeah, it happens.
We could fake argue.
Absolutely.
Not that that's what happens, but it probably does on occasion.
Someone has to bring the drama. That's what I say.
Right.
I get in a lot of trouble. When I say things. So I read this book, Woman's Inhumanity to Woman, which was a super interesting book by Dr. Phyllis Chesler, who is an 80-year-old psychologist. She's been in the business forever. She's just fabulous. She wrote the book maybe, I want to say 10 years ago or something. I'm hoping it goes into reprint because I keep talking about it so much. But so in this book, she talks about how women specifically are very tribal. And it starts in the playground at age 8, and there's a hierarchy, and those who don't adhere to the ways of the hierarchy and the ones at the top are ostracized, and they're ostracized by shunning, by slandering, and by gossiping. And the ones that are ostracized are usually the truth tellers and the independent thinkers, which is me, which is why I'm always getting in trouble because, if I had a dime for every time my poor husband said, can you not just not share your opinion? And I'm like, but I feel like because I am an independent thinker, it's my responsibility to do so. And I think I have been since I was 8 years old in the playground.
See, I think that's a good thing. There should be nothing wrong with having a different opinion. Most of us should be able to handle someone having a different opinion than we do and just appreciate the fact that they have an opinion, but not get upset that it's different than ours. But that's not how most people react.
No. And also, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for saying this, but sorry, Michael, you're a guy. And the way women are is very different. If you come across someone that has a different opinion than yours, I bet you contemplate it, you think about it. I mean, if you're an 8-year-old boy, you might tussle for a little in the playground. Right. Not that I'm saying that women should be more physical. That is not what I am saying.
No, but that's the end of it once you're done with that.
Right. And then it's done.
Yeah.
And then it's done and it's put away. Whereas women, Well, this is a whole different kettle of fish. First of all, we're trained from a very young age, when someone offends you or you disagree with them, you put it in your pocket and you take it away. So that's the worst thing you could possibly do, because
Yeah.
what does it do? It festers, it grows, you get resentment. You know, men on the whole tend to have, and again, here she goes, too opinionated, getting in trouble. No, men on the whole tend, and this is from Dr. Chesler's book too, but
Yeah.
I agree with this wholeheartedly. Men tend to have middle ground relationships. So you could go out and spend the day with your buddies, and you come home and your significant other can say to you, well, how is, so and so's wife or something? And you go, I don't know. Well, I don't know. Whereas I go out with my girlfriends and I come home and I'm saying, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what's going on in their marriage and what's going on here and here. I mean, women as a whole tend to go all in, right?
Yeah.
We are, we tell each other where the bodies are buried. We are in there for the long haul.
No, it makes
And
us
there
guys
might be
very
something.
uncomfortable.
Well, there might be something to how you guys have friendships. There might be something that we could take from that, to tell you the truth, honestly.
Most of the time, if I get into an argument with another guy, it just kind of ends. We never really resolve it. It's just at some point we're just like, let's just move on.
Exactly.
Or you walk away mad, and then the next day you come right back and you just act like nothing ever happened. It's done.
Right.
And I know, like my mother, she has carried some grudges around for decades. And they're nothing. They're just minor things that happened to her when she was a teenager or something. But I guarantee if she ran into those people now, she would still be cold toward them.
God bless women. God bless the sisterhood. I come from a very female-centric family. I'm myself and my sister. The women in my family really sort of did the organizing. I love my father. I love my uncles, but it was a very matriarchal family. I went to an all-girls school. I love the sisterhood, but I really wrote this book, which is a fiction. So this is not like a calculated tell-all or anything like that. But I wrote this book because I really did feel, we have a couple problems within the sisterhood that we need to talk about. And I gave it a name. I call it misplaced female misogyny, which is a mouthful, I know. But really, when we think of misogyny, traditionally, we think of men not treating women in a particularly humane way or how they should. But there exists female misogyny, and it's ugly and it's real, and it needs to be talked about. It needs to be dealt with, and people don't like to talk about it. This Dr. Phyllis Chesler, spends 7 pages of the introduction to her book, which is nonfiction, apologizing for writing the book. That's how nervous she is about going up against the sisterhood. So you got to be careful. You respect the sisterhood, but you can still say, guys, we got a little problem with friendly fire here and we need to deal with it.
Let me ask you this, because this is something that my wife has dealt with. She works for Live Nation. She's pretty high up in the executive ranks in Live Nation, and she's battled. We've been together long enough that I've seen her kind of progress through the company, and every step of the way has been painful. There's just that the glass ceiling really is there. You may not realize it, but it's there.
It exists.
So she has to deal with that, kind of moving up. But the worst part is that other women within the company, those are the ones that treated her the worst. And you would think, that women would kind of back each other up, because there is that glass ceiling. It exists. You think those, but they don't. It's almost like, and this is just coming from a guy's side, so you tell me if I'm wrong, but it to me, it seems like each woman wants to be the one that can say, I made it into this guy's group. I'm the only woman that made it. So when there's other women, it's a rivalry, which makes no sense.
The research shows women are inherently tribal, and every tribe needs a chief, and it's a fight for the chiefdom. I mean, again, I'm a little nervous saying this on your podcast because I don't want to get in trouble from the sisterhood. I love women. I absolutely love women, but I'm a woman. But there are some issues that exist with how we relate to one another that need to be resolved. And I will go so far as to say this. I think that we have been drinking the Kool-Aid. Now, don't get upset. Don't you get upset with me, but I think we've been drinking the Kool-Aid of the patriarchy for so long in how we ought to behave that we tend to internalize that, and then we project it onto other women. So your dress is too short. You shouldn't be dressing like that. Right. You should like cooking. You shouldn't want to be a homemaker. You should want to stay home with your kids. You should. So we end up being our own worst enemies, which is crazy.
It is. That just makes no sense to me. It's a very complicated, because you're dealing with hundreds and sometimes thousands of years of history where women were expected to act a certain way, men were expected to act a certain way, and we're all struggling to try to reconcile that and put us on equal footing, which it should be. It should absolutely be on equal footing, but it's still not.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And it's funny because people say, well, then don't you feel, because I also produce reality television. I wasn't just a participant. I went on to produce it. And they said, don't you feel that shows like Housewives perpetuate that by pitting women against one another? Right. And I have a theory on that, to tell you the truth. I remain a fan of the genre, and I say, no, I disagree, because I'm not sure how familiar you are with the formula of a show like Real Housewives, but oftentimes when two housewives have an issue with one another, the producers will say, okay, you two need to have a minute here and you need to talk about this. And when I had to do this, I cringed. I said, oh, please tell me I don't have to do the whole, could I speak with you alone for a minute, please? Because it's such a housewives cliche. Oh, even when I see it, I go, no, 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 not that. But, you know, I had to do it. We had to do it. And I do think that there is something in that, showing the viewer, look, you got to resolve the conflicts. You don't bury them. You don't gossip about them. You go to the person you have the problem with. You say, may we speak together? Here's the problem. How are we going to resolve this? So to that end, I actually think the formula of Housewives does a service to modeling how healthy female relationships should be. And I'll take it a step further and say, young people enjoy watching these shows when they're cast with older women, because, you know, you have your crazy college days and then you settle down. You get a job, you get a partner, maybe you have children, and you think, that's it, the fun's over. But you turn on Housewives and you see these 50+ women acting crazy. And you go, wait a second. There's a second coming. It's going to happen for me again. It's not all over. My kids are going to grow up and I can be crazy again with my girlfriends. So again, as I say, I consider it art. I think it elicits a distinct emotional response. And I think it's actually modeling how women should interact with one another. Not every franchise, because I don't want everybody saying, are you crazy, and table flipping and everything. No, not every franchise and not every group of women, but for the most part, yes.
Yeah, I actually love that. I actually love that. So let's talk a little bit about your time on Housewives, and then we'll get into the book, which I can't wait to get a copy. I know it came out in May. So I ordered a copy for me and my wife. So I'm excited.
Wonderful. End of May.
End of May. That's right. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But let's go through the housewife time. So when you were going onto the show, once you had kind of accepted that you were coming on the show, did you reach out to like former cast members to ask them about what you were getting ready to walk into?
I did, absolutely. So interestingly, I had been friends previously with some of the cast members from Beverly Hills.
Okay.
Who had, so I knew them historically. Actually, fun fact, Bethany Frankel was a hostess. Her famed past is she was a hostess at La Scala restaurant in Beverly Hills. And I was a private party coordinator down the street from her at the Bistro Garden. And Kyle Richards knew us both. I actually lived with Kyle and her daughter Farrah for a couple of years when Kyle was a single mom. I always said this would make a great show, like the two of us with Farrah. So I was very good friends with her. I was friends with Kim Richards and I was friends with Kathy Hilton. So really I was close with the Richards sisters. And Kathy Hilton said the best advice to me, it's funny because I think Kathy, she and I are very close friends. And I think she knew my personality because she said, remember this in the back of your mind. I'm nice, but don't mess with me. And I went into this show as a serial pleaser, meaning at the time I thought it was, oh, here's Kara with the bluebird on her shoulder and I just want everybody to be happy. But through the course of the show, I'll tell you what I learned about being a pleaser. There's a ton of vanity tied up with that. because you say, I just want everyone to be happy. But really what it means is I want everyone to like me.
Right.
And the lesson, the life lesson and the takeaway is no matter how you act, no matter what you do, there is always going to be a percentage of the population that will not like you. There will
That's
be
right.
those who love you. There will be those that don't like you. And there's not much you can do about it. So you might as well be yourself. And I think Kathy didn't want me to be doing, backhand springs and whatnot to try and get people to like me.
Right.
So she said, you have to say to yourself, I'm nice, but don't mess with me.
See, I really like that because I'm kind of that way. I'm kind of a people pleaser. And I always say that I just want everybody to be happy with that. But when you really get down to it, some of that is coming from my own insecurities and that I want people to like me with that. And I realized that a long time ago. It didn't really change how I was. That's just who I am. but at least I understand where I'm coming from. It's not all trying to help everybody else. Some of it's for me.
Completely. And I think an awareness of that, you're right. It doesn't necessarily change how you act, but an awareness of that takes away a lot of the anxiety that might be associated with that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you learn, especially as you get into adulthood, if your expectation is that everybody's going to like you, you're going to be upset a lot.
Yes. Yes, that's such a great. Where were you when I was going on this show? Where were you? No, it's true.
I was right here.
The other piece, I know, I hadn't found you. The other piece of advice that another housewife gave me, and I won't say who this is, but it was funny because she said, do not drink the first night. Do not drink the first night because a glass of wine is like a bottle and 2 glasses of wine and you'll be off your rocker. Now, this is interesting because I know you haven't seen my franchise of Toronto, but the first night I took that to heart and I was thinking, okay, don't drink. I'm mic'd up. I'm, the camera's on me and the waiter comes with the tray of champagne and I'm thinking, oh no, what do I do? So I whispered to the waiter, get a champagne glass and fill it with sparkling water. What a moron I am, because of course I'm mic'd. So the producers have their headsets on and they hear this and they're like, oh, is there a problem with alcohol? Obviously, they were thinking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So they send another housewife in to say, here's your glass of champagne, Kara, right from her tray. And I said, oh, no, and the waiter comes over and brings me mine. And she says, you don't drink? So how do I respond to that? Because you have that fourth wall. So I'm not allowed in housewife world to say, oh, my girlfriend said, don't drink on camera. Right. So because this is how we're supposed to be in housewife kingdom. So I stood there and went, no. And that became a huge plot line in Housewives. Oh, she doesn't drink and she's so judgmental. And what else doesn't she do? And she's looking at us. Mind you, 3 episodes down the line, I have a dinner party and I'm drinking wine. So people are like, what is wrong with this woman? She doesn't even know who she is. So it was
you should have said something like, well, I had a little too much last night. I'm still feeling the effects. I'm just taking today off.
Okay, let me tell you something. Distance and perspective is everything. Because at the time, the mics are hot, the cameras are on you. You're worried, first of all, about there's a lot going on. I said to someone, it's like riding a unicycle on a tightrope being sprayed with a water gun. You're thinking, how's my hair? How's my makeup? Oh, I have to talk to her. Oh, what's she thinking? What are the producers thinking? There's so much inner dialogue and that you have to handle. Yeah. So when you see someone like Vicki Gunvalson saying, I just want to have my love tank filled up. Like, I love that line so much. Or let's whoop it up. I mean, Vicki to me is she is the OG, but she is a pro at housewifedness. She is a pro at let's juggle and, do everything else at the same time.
So I know you've produced as well. I mean, what are producers or the creators for a certain reality show? What are they looking for in a cast? How do they figure out what personalities they want to intermingle? Because if you get the mix wrong, maybe it's not a very good show.
And that's what happened with my franchise in Toronto. The mix was off. That's excellent. Very good. So you want to create an atmosphere that's like, I've heard the expression lightning in a jar or chasing chickens. Okay. So have that in the back of your head. You want that energy because it's always easy to pull the energy back as opposed to boosting it up. But what's interesting is when I finished my time on Toronto Housewives, before you do the show, we had to do a psychological assessment.
Yeah.
And it's a 3-hour long. It's very in depth. And they say it's so that you can handle the feedback from social media. But really, they want to know what your hot spots are.
Right.
So when I wrapped, I asked if I could see mine. And mine, the first line on mine said, Kara Alloway, the psychologist was very nice. He was like, of course you can. Kara Alloway has a very high emotional intelligence. So I, took that and kept it inside. And I thought, okay, I wasn't really quite sure what that meant, but okay, I guess I do have a high emotional intelligence. As I said, I am an independent thinker. I feel
Sure.
deeply. I will tell you if you annoy me, I'll say, oh, that's not very nice. I don't keep it inside. I think it's very healthy, actually.
I do
But then
too.
I had the opportunity to sit in on a how to cast reality television with Jonathan Murray, who is the godfather of reality television. He did The Real World. He did The Simple Life. And I had my little off-brand moleskin there. I was taking my notes. Yes, how do I cast this? And the very first thing he said was, your villain should have a very high emotional intelligence. I almost dropped my pen. I sat there in the room and went, oh, wow. Now it all makes sense. So when I did that psychological assessment and I came out with a high emotional intelligence, like someone like a Vicky Gunvalson, like someone like a Leanne Locken, who I know, consider friends of mine and adore. We get along so well because we're all so highly emotionally intelligent. But like those kind of personalities, that's what makes your villain. So you always want someone who's like that.
Yeah.
Then in terms of the rest of the cast, you as unfiltered as you can find, really as unfiltered as you can find,
Okay.
with interesting personalities, interesting, quirky personalities, but the filters must be loose. You don't want someone who's so aware of what they're presenting or who's so aware of what's going on, what is everyone going to be thinking of me. You need that unfiltered flow to get the chasing chickens, lightning in a jar, and to get that organic conflict going, because that's what you want. And is it all about conflict? Well, let me tell you something. I'm not tuning into a show where I'm watching Kumbaya. And why is the Kardashians so popular? Because everybody fights with their sibling. It's relatable.
That's
so
right.
You want it relatable, but a little bit aspirational. We call it dreamer mode. So it doesn't necessarily have to be financially aspirational, but maybe the travel aspirational aspect or something. There's got to be an aspirational aspect. I mean, my husband and my boys are crazy for fishing. So they can watch Deadliest Catch or Wicked Tuna is their favorite.
Yeah.
That's their aspirational. Imagine what it would be like to be a tuna fisherman, and that's how you make your living. So it's got that dreamer mode, the unfiltered boat captains. I mean, it works in any combination of reality television, whatever the show is. Housewives, Deadliest Catch, Wicked Tuna, Alone, you name it.
Well, yeah, you could even a show like Survivor would be the same type of thing, because you have to have that mix of personalities, or else it's just kind of boring.
Absolutely. It really is. So I knew that was required on my show too. And I'm not quite sure why. People say, like, how come you did it? And I said, well, someone had to bring the drama. And there were times when I thought, okay, enough, Kara. This is ridiculous. Zip it, sit back and be quiet. And I can remember being in the scene, but also going, I've just changed the channel on my own show. This is the most boring thing in the world. So then I go, all right, bring the beast out. She's got to come. Let's go.
Does anyone ever actually get like really hurt on the show so that they have trouble moving past it?
Okay, when you say hurt, do you mean emotionally hurt?
Emotionally
or do you
hurt.
mean physically?
Like somebody says something that, I mean, we all get our
yeah.
feelings hurt on occasion, but is it ever so bad that it disrupts the show?
Oh, completely. I look at something like Vanderpump Rules this season and the whole cheating with Tom Sandoval and all that. I mean, that was brutal. I also think that was absolutely brilliant, entertaining television. Alex Baskin is the executive producer there. He was with Evolution. Now he started his own company, 32 Flavors, but he still does Housewives of Beverly Hills, and he still does Vanderpump Rules. And in my opinion, he is a master. And I'll tell you why he's a master. There is a difference between manipulating reality and augmenting reality. And Alex takes the reality and he augments it. So he will take the viewer's chin and turn it and go, look at Tom looking at Raquel or Rachel. Look at how their eyes are connecting. Look how they're connecting.
I like that.
He does it with a camera angle. He does it with music. He does it seamlessly and beautifully. Other production companies have to rely on manufacturing the reality. And how do they do that? Frankenbiting and cherry picking. So a perfect example of Frankenbiting would be in my show specifically. I was having lunch with another housewife that I had a problem with.
Okay.
And they had come to my summer house and they had had a little too much to drink. Again, the drinking thing came in. The drinking thing haunted me the whole show. I was like, enough with the drinking. But they had had a little too much to drink and they decided they were going to go skinny dipping. But the problem was my minor children were doing a fireworks show for them. So I got a little upset. My kids ran and got out of there because they were like, ew, we don't want to see old ladies undressed. No way. But I had some issues saying, you don't do that. Nobody actually went skinny dipping, but there was inference that they wanted to in front of my kids. And I said,
I'd
no,
have
you don't do
trouble
that.
with that.
So my line was, look, you come after me, I'll stand my own, but you come after my kids and flames will shoot out of my nose. It's what I say. I say it all the time. As I said, I'm over the top. I'm dramatic. The Frankenbiting was when that scene actually aired, the producers had me saying, because Kara needed to be a little whack. So Kara said, you come after me and flames will shoot out of my nose. To which the viewing audience was like, this woman is insane. She's
Well, they don't have the context.
Exactly. They had a couple drinks at her cottage. What? Because it was edited. So that's Frankenbiting. Cherry picking was, this is a great example of cherry picking. They had some interviews they were doing with us just for promos for the show. And they would ask us questions. And one question they said is, what do you think about wife swapping? So I was trying to be very politically correct. And I went, well, maybe for some people, not for me. How that aired was the wives talk about their thoughts on tequila. Kara Alloway, maybe for some other people, but not for me. So again, here comes Kara. Oh, she doesn't drink. And then she gets mad at people and says flames are going to shoot out of her nose when they drink. And then she says maybe for other people, but not for her, building this whole crazy manufactured.
I mean, that happens all the time on reality TV. We see that all the time where, and sometimes even later in the show, the member may say something like, well, that was taken out of context, because it absolutely was.
Yes, it depends who the production company is. So again, someone like an Alex Baskin, like a truly original, like a Shed Media, they don't have to resort for that because they're such masters at the casting and at taking that reality and augmenting it. The other guys, they got to make it up because if your cast, like you said earlier, if your cast isn't there, if it's not the chasing chickens and the lightning in a jar, you got to make it up and you got to get your own spoon to stir the pot and go, okay, we'll do it for you.
How much obligation do the producers and the showrunners have to ensure that everybody is mentally, emotionally okay?
Great question, actually. That's a great question. Again, I think it depends production company to production company. You want to be, nobody ever warned me of this in advance. And I remember my husband saying this, you have to be very careful who you are entrusting with your reality, if that makes any sense at all. Because, I mean, let me tell you something. When I came out of Toronto Housewives, I can joke about it now. And I wrote this fiction book, ha, 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 it's funny and all that stuff. But when I came out of Toronto Housewives, I was in a really bad place. I never watched the show. I watched it 6 months in. I started to watch it and then I couldn't watch it because myself or the iteration of myself that was there was so distasteful. And that's a real mind, you know what? Like I was like, oh my gosh. And then you have these trolls on social media saying, oh, you're awful, you're hideous. And I got to say, I agree with them. I mean, I watched the first episode 2 weeks ago, and then I went upstairs and snaked a drain in my son's shower, and snaking the drain was more appealing than watching myself on the show. I was just like, oh, you are horrible. But again, the cherry picking, the Frankenbiting. So, the participant agreement says, the participant agreement for my show specifically was brutal. It's like all bets are off. All bets are off. You are signing. I had people saying you could never sign this. And that's why it's a hard show to cast, specifically in Toronto, because we tend to be very conservative. I mean, we're the #1 multicultural city in the world, but we're also very conservative. We like our skeletons way in the back of our closet, way in the back. So people would see the participant agreement and say, are you kidding me? I would have to be insane to sign this. Me, I'm the kind of person, I'll do anything once, whatever. It's going to be fun. It's fine. I'll be very conscious of what I'm saying, not considering the extent of the edit. I mean, I was walking into a restaurant one time in very high heels and the cameraman was filming me walking backwards. Because you have to think when they're filming someone walking forward, there's a cameraman walking backwards to film that. So he said, we had to do it again. And he said, you got to walk slower, Kara. I'm going to fall over. And when you walk in really high heels, you get a little tippy if you walk too slow. Like you have to have a pace, right?
That's right.
So I said, listen, again, with the drinking, I'm going to look like I'm drunk out of my mind here. Like I can't even walk a straight line. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. We'll speed your walk up in the edit. And that was the first time I went, wait a second, because I had thought I was so careful about what I was saying. I was so careful with my words. And then I got, the edit. So in answer to your question, how responsible, I mean, you know, it's sort of like the human condition. You don't want to see people be pushed over the edge. And the sort of reality television I do, my new shows are foodie shows. I do have a docu-soap, but it's with event planners. So it's not that deep, but you got to be careful because, you know, again, when we look at something like the Vanderpump Rules and the Scandival and like, that's real hearts being broken. That's real lives.
Well, yeah, that was kind of my thought because it's not just the person on the show. I mean, you got to think, you know, they've got family, they got, you know, husbands, wives, kids, that type of thing. And it affects them as well. Like if I saw when I was younger, if I saw my mother on a show like that and she was acting what seemed like out of character for her, you know, she was being a villain or whatever, I probably would have had trouble with that.
Yes, it was actually that's very interesting that you say that. It was the hardest on my youngest son, who at the time was in the 7th grade.
Yeah.
And he really didn't like it. And he went back to school. And it's interesting because he himself was an actor. He was in the union. He had done commercials and voice work.
So you'd think he would get it.
You would think he would get it, but he didn't like two things about it. He didn't like that it wasn't scripted, that it was supposed to be someone else's version of reality. So we were doing a scene and I was packing my suitcase and the director for the scene said, okay, his name is Christian. He said, Christian, I want you to sit on the bed and like roll your eyes and act like your mom is so annoying and so boring. And he took me aside in the bathroom and he said, Mom, I don't want to do this. And I said, why? You don't want to be on camera? That's okay. You don't have to. And he said, no, I don't want to act like you're annoying and boring because that's not our dynamic. That's not our relationship. And I don't want to do that. I was like, wow. And I said, you have to understand, you don't have to do anything you don't want to. We just say, no, I'm not doing that. Like it's fine. It's cool. Then also post facto, the reaction from not just his classmates, but the mothers of his classmates. Oh my goodness. Again, coming back to women against women.
Yeah.
The mothers were brutal. And he saw the ostracism of his mom. And that was really hard for him to process, knowing that the iteration of me that was up there was not the real me. So it was a lot.
Well, as a son, you would want to defend your mother.
Completely. When they're all on the psychiatrist's couch in 10 years, it's because of me. I'm sorry.
So let's talk about Most Hated.
Yes.
So I know that the book is based around kind of a reality show, but tell a little bit about it. What's the book about?
Yes. So the book is 6 women who sign up to participate in a reality show based in Manhattan. And the idea is it's a well-worn reality show that the producers have decided to revamp. So they've brought in a Quentin Tarantino type gentleman to direct it, which, because I had to make sense, why would these women want to do this show? I was really interested in their motivation because people always ask me, that's one of the first questions. Why would you ever do this? Why would you do this? So I needed these big characters that I had to have the proper motivation for why they'd want to do it. So I brought in this, you know, what if Quentin Tarantino said, I'm going to be doing Real Housewives of Beverly Hills? Well, you can bet everybody who normally would say, no, I don't want to do it, might be signing up.
I bet you a lot of people would watch that show.
Oh, I think they would too. Actually, I think it's a great idea. I think Andy Cohen.
It's a pretty good idea.
Call me Andy. But anyway, so the different characters. So one of them is a tight end, because I didn't want a quarterback, too cliche. So I got a tight end, like a Travis Kelce type. I'm a huge Chiefs fan. Go Chiefs. A Travis Kelce type. It's his wife who decides she wants to step off the sidelines and, you know, into the spotlight on her own. So she signs up to do it. There's another influencer, because you have to have a social media influencer, of course, because they fascinate me. There is a female executive who's been from the pages of Forbes. There is a sort of, people say, oh, is she supposed to be like Britney Spears? Well, no, a former teen pop idol that wants to, you know, rejuvenate her career, that sort of type. And then the most interesting character for me, that was the first character that I cast, because when I was writing this book, I cast my novel, how I would want to cast a reality show, is the character Sabrina, who was an American princess, Park Avenue princess, also an actress at a very young age, who married a much older, and it couldn't be royalty because I didn't want to get in trouble with the royal family.
Right.
So married a much older, titled aristocrat from England and moved over there. And then he was accused of a Me Too incident. So she comes scurrying back to America. She has to leave her young daughter over there who's 14, and she's heartbroken at this, and her world has just imploded, and she's looking to reinvent herself. And her cousin Budgie says, look, I'm signed up to do this show. I'm a big deal. You come do it with me, because Budgie is like a Broadway producer. She's a little older. If I was casting the movie, she would be like a Melissa McCartney kind of type. She's very outspoken and brash. And Budgie says, Sabrina, come do this show with me. We're going to rewrite your narrative. We're going to reinvent ourselves, and we're going to have a hoot while we're at it. Budgie is like a great character. Everybody loves Budgie. And so all these women come together. They all sign up to do this show, and it's all how they interact in front of the camera, behind the camera. But then you have to add in the producers, who specifically, there is a producer, Zoe, who is young, who wants this Quentin Tarantino type to bring her on to his next project. And she will do whatever it takes to make this show the highest rated, the most popular, the most talked about. And she goes to extremes. And it's so funny because in the reviews that I've received from individuals, people say to me like, I hated her, but I couldn't wait to see what she did next, but I hated her. They're so passionate. I absolutely love that. Someone once told me writers write to evoke, and I have to say it's so true. The best part about writing is the feedback after people read it and say, this person was awful, or I felt like I was watching.
Have you always been a writer?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah, because you did the magazine. That's right.
Yes.
Allure, is that the magazine?
Yes, it was Allure magazine. And then I did a couple magazines when I moved back to Canada too. So I have always been a writer, and I always knew I was going to write a book dealing with female friendships. I just didn't know what the backdrop would be. So when people say, oh, I don't like reality television, I don't think this is a book for me, I actually just hung up talking to my 80-plus-year-old aunt today. And she said, I just finished your book and I loved it. And she said, I hate reality television, but I loved your book. So it's, if you love reality television, it's for you. If you hate reality television, it's for you. The reality television aspect is the backdrop, but really it's a lot of interpersonal relationships, how people react. There's a lot of marriage issues, you know, what it's like to be married to a sports superstar. I actually have some very dear girlfriends who are married to sports superstars. We actually met after Housewives. And that's why I knew that the character's name is Dahlia. I knew she had to be married to a famous football player, because I was fascinated by what I learned about these women and what they sacrifice for their families. A lot of them are former athletes themselves, because athletes tend to marry athletes.
That's right.
And you know, in some instances, you can have two super athletes in a family, but not in every family. Someone usually has to take a powder and say, okay, I'll give up my career, you go ahead. And what I learned from these women about, you know, saying things like, you have no idea how many times we'll be out and someone will hand me their coat and say, here, take a picture with me and your husband. And they said, like, our identities get erased. And you have to be a very strong individual that knows what your purpose is, that, you know, your marriage has to be strong. So that fascinated me. So I said, I need one of those wives to be a character in this too.
Yeah. See, I really like that, because that is absolutely true to life. You know,
it really is.
Married,
I don't know. Have you been watching that show Quarterback? It's on Netflix.
I've seen the first one, but I watched the first one, and then my wife said, I want to watch that too. So I'm waiting on her.
It's good. Yes. Watch it with her. She'll like it.
The first one was really good.
Oh, it's great. And it delves a little bit into that, because they have the spouses on there. So they touch a little on that, how, you know, it's a lot all about them. And it takes a very strong personality.
I talked with a couple of actors, and I won't say their names, but the husband took a big role. Like probably the biggest role that either one of them had. They were both fairly accomplished. Well, they had to move to a different state, and they had just started a family. And so the wife stepped back from acting, right? So she steps back from acting. Well, then over time, she kind of lost her sense of identity, because most actors do it because they want to be seen. So stepping out of the limelight, you know, she had a great time raising the kids. But then as the kids got older, she started kind of having those feelings that she was missing out on some stuff. And so she wrote a book about that time and overcoming that, and how she kind of got past those feelings. So I thought, hey, that's that's probably happens all the time and you never hear about it, but you see those Hollywood couples and one of them kind of disappears. It's because
Yes.
they're home taking care of the family.
It's so true. That's very interesting, actually. That afterwards, you have to tell me what that book is, because
Yeah.
I'd love to read that. No, that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
really interesting. And let me tell you something. When people say to me, why did you do Housewives? I have no shame in saying I was a stay-at-home mom. So I dedicated a good, let's say 15 years of my life solely to raising 3 boys. My husband was a corporate lawyer. You know,
Yeah.
I used to call him Fred Flintstone. He would leave in the morning and he wouldn't come home till night. And you know, he was very involved in the work, and we had agreed that this is how it was going to happen. I put my journalism career on hold. I tried to keep writing at 11:30 at night after the kids were in bed. But let me tell you something, after you've given a bath, after you've given
Yeah.
that third bath, you're just like, no, I'm done. There's
Right.
no creative juices left. So I had done that for 15 years, and I am all for it. It's great. I have no regrets, but I'll tell you, I was a little bored. And I went to
Yeah.
my husband and I said, I'm a little bored. You know, you do tend to lose your sense of self. It's wonderful. And if it's not for you, it's okay too. But, you know, I chose to do that and I was a little bored. So I wanted to step out and try something, which I also weave into the narrative. I mean, Dahlia is the character who is most like me. She's there kind of saying, I want to try something, but then also she lacks a filter just like me, and she gets herself in so much trouble. And people have said, I'm reading this book going, just stop talking to her. But, you know,
Did
she
you
can't help.
put any dialogue into the book that was something that you wished you had said at a time?
What a great question that nobody has asked me. 100%.
Because that's what
Yes.
I would do.
Yes. Absolutely. This was my chance. It's so true. That's such a great question. I have to tell you, nobody has asked me that. And yes, I did. Because at the time, as I said, you know, you're so, the cameras are filming you and you're thinking on your feet and whatnot, and you don't necessarily have a chance. And 2020 hindsight, I was like, why didn't I say this?
Right.
Why didn't I come back like this? So yes, I did. So Dahlia is much strong figure than Kara Alloway, but Dahlia is sort of like my superhero, right?
Yeah. Well, it makes sense
My
because we've
alias.
all been in those situations where you're in an argument and somebody says something that kind of gets you and you don't have a comeback. And then as soon as they leave, it hits you what you should have said.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, that's what the book sounds awesome. I mean, it sounds if you had just written the book and had nothing to do with reality TV, it would still be a terrific book. But I think adding
Interesting.
to the fact that you obviously know what you're talking about, I mean, that makes it even better.
Yeah. So I give a peek behind the curtain. There's a little mystery in it. It starts with someone in an ambulance. They're taking an ambulance ride, and then you have to figure out in the course of the
Okay,
story who it
I like
is.
that.
And then there's romance and there's a lot of relationships. The only thing there isn't is fantasy, the reason why I say that is it's so funny. I've been doing in-person bookstore appearances,
Yeah.
and young people really love fantasy right now.
Oh yeah.
There's no dragons. Unfortunately, I should have had a dragon in there. There are no dragons in this book.
Every
So
book should have a dragon.
every book should have. If only I had had a dragon in the streets of Manhattan. What was I thinking?
What were you thinking?
I don't know.
Well, and so let me think. I had one more question for you for the housewife side of it. It'll come back to me. Because it was something I was curious about, but it'll hit me again. We'll come back around to it. So what's next for you? So the book came out at the end of May, so you're kind of still in the publicity side of it.
I'm
But what's
still on the
next? Are
book
you
tour.
planning to write a new one, or do you get back into the reality side?
You know what? My Mac will soon, unless plugged into a power outage. Sorry, I'm just seeing that my Mac is low battery. I don't want to
Oh, yeah,
all of
yeah.
a sudden disconnect from you. I'm so sorry.
That's all
So
right. If
sorry
you need
about
to
that.
plug up, go ahead, plug up.
I don't know what happened. What's next for me? So I do still have these 3 shows in pre-production,
Yeah.
which is fun. And I'm selling those. One is about charity event planners. It's like $1 Million Listing meets
Oh,
my Sweet 16 sort of, and how
yeah.
these event planners out of Dallas, it's called Dallas Planners Club. And these event planners all sort of compete against each other, but they live in the same world and they're all friends, but they're sort of frenemies. Another one
See,
is
that
about
sounds
a
like
group.
one I would probably watch.
Well, yeah, it's fun. It's a fun show. It's good for what they call co-viewing, which is where you watch it with your partner.
Yeah.
And then another one is called Extreme Foodies, which is about a group of ordinary citizens by day, and then they're obsessed with food and the history of food. So on the weekends, they have incredible resource. On the weekends, they might jump on a plane, fly to Italy, and get a reservation at this hard to get restaurant, hard to get a reservation at. They go there, they order everything on the menu, not in a gluttonous way, but because they want to taste everything. And again, as I say, they are food experts. So they can talk to you about fried chicken, for example, and say, it must be cooked at this temperature to get the outside crispy, yet maintain the moisture on the inside. They can talk about a Reuben sandwich till you're blue in the face. For our sizzle reel, we did tacos, and they were able to tell me the genesis, how tacos started in Lebanon. They came from Lebanon to Mexico City. These are the El Pastor tacos. The ones they slice off the little turning spit.
Sure.
They went to Mexico City, to Tijuana, from Tijuana, north of the border, to Los Angeles. I mean, they know the history and science of the food. I know I loved hanging out with them. We ate 48 tacos in 24 hours. And let me tell you something, I feel like I'm a taco expert now.
That's a job I need.
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember the question. So once the cameras stop rolling, what's it like then? Are you friendly with the other women, or do you just kind of walk off? How does it end after you stop filming?
Well, it really depends what you've been filming. For me, unfortunately, I was the villain. I didn't have a relationship with the women before. Our lives hadn't intersected, so they didn't intersect afterwards. But I can tell you from the Beverly Hills franchise, they sort of have an arm's length relationship. Like you think, oh, they must be best friends and hang out all the time. No, they keep it arm's length, which I think having that is very clever, because if you get too close to the people, then you're going to destroy the organic conflict, because you're not going to be selling your best friend.
No, you're not going to want to hurt their feelings if you're close.
No. So they do keep it arm's length. And I think for the most part, on most of the franchise, they do that. I think that's really healthy. As for mine, I mean, I was, I was most hated. Left that way, came in that way. Oh, well.
Well,
read my book.
That's usually the character that everybody likes the most. They might love to hate them, but that's the one that they want to see what that character is going to do each week.
Completely. The most memorable, right? You remember Cruella de Vil. Do you remember who the other woman was that owned the Dalmatians? No, you don't remember her name. You remember Cruella.
I didn't even know there was a woman that owned the Dalmatians.
Yes, there was I think she was her niece.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
See? And she was nice.
That is true. That's probably a defect in humanity, that we're drawn to the conflict and the drama.
I think so. I think so.
Well, Kara, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time. We could talk all night. I absolutely.
I could talk to you all night. Thank you.
It's been terrific. You're so welcome. It's been terrific. So before we go though, go through one more time where we can find the book, and then go through.
So Most Hated.
Yes, Most Hated.
The book's title is called Most Hated. It is a fiction story. It's a very light summer read, backyard read, beach read, pool read. Very light.
The
chapters are short. It is. The chapters are short. So if you're not in the habit of reading, it's a great book to get you back in the habit of reading. And it's available at Barnes & Noble, online, as well as in the bricks and mortar stores. It's also available on Amazon to order. And lots of independent stores across North America, the UK, Australia. And read it. And then I'm at KaraAlloway.com. My Instagram is at Kara Alloway. Read it and then reach out to me and tell me what you loved, and tell me what you hated, and tell me what you thought, and tell me what it evoked in you, because writers write to evoke. And I love hearing from readers. I genuinely love it.
Even you'll get feedback from us, because we're going to read it.
Good. Fabulous. I look forward to it.
It'll be, I'll tell you a real quick story, and then we can wrap up. When my daughter, my oldest, she was probably 10 or so, 11, somewhere in there. She really wanted to go see Mean Girls, right? Ooh, so I took her, little father-daughter date. So I took her to see Mean Girls. She might have been a couple years young, but I took her. So watched it. I thought the movie was hilarious. I'm just having the best time watching this movie.
I thought it was great.
Yeah. And so I look over at her, and she's crying. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, they're just so mean.
Oh my gosh. That's the sweetest thing ever. But it's true. They were so mean.
They were pretty mean.
But it was good. Tina Fey did such a great job with
Oh,
that. She really did.
yeah,
That was
so good.
amazing.
So good. Well,
Maybe
Kara,
Most
thank
Hated
you
will be
so
a
much.
movie. You never
What's
know.
that?
Maybe Most Hated will be a movie.
Well, I was just going to say that I would watch that as a movie or a TV show.
I think so. Maybe limited series on
Yeah.
Netflix. Hello,
I think it'd
Netflix. Are you
be, how
listening?
fun would that be? Because we all love reality TV, and here you're getting the drama like it's like actual reality, but it's scripted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. I think it'd be terrific. Well, Kara, you have an open invitation. Anytime, come back.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this has been great. Okay, hold on one second. Well, here we go. Let's try again. Well, if you're a reality TV fan, I hope you enjoyed that, Kara Alloway. Terrific. Absolutely terrific. If you watched her on Real Housewives of Toronto, you probably had a different opinion of her than she actually is. Really nice person that understands exactly how she is portrayed. She's very, high emotional intelligence. You can tell that, but I loved her kind of talking through how villains are chosen, how cast is chosen. Really, really interesting stuff. Her book is Most Hated. It's out now. Please go and support her. Check that out. It's a good read, good summer beach read. Go and get your copy. We got ours. It should be here, I'm guessing, tomorrow. So we'll be reading as well. But I hope you enjoyed that. I appreciate you guys. Definitely don't take you for granted. There's 15 million podcasts out there. Really appreciate that you choose ours week after week. If you're finding us for the first time and you enjoyed it and would like to support us, we need the help. It's easy to do. It's free. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Just hit that subscribe button. Really helps us out. If you prefer to listen, wherever you're listening to your podcast from, just subscribe there. That'll help us as well. Today, we put out episode number 622. We normally put out 4 or 5 episodes a week, which is pretty high volume for a podcast, but episode 622, you can find all of those audio and video on our website, meistercon.com. It'll also let you know if we're doing anything in studio, if we're going on location, covering a convention, anything we have going on will be on the website, meistercon.com. So definitely check us out there. Thank you guys so much. I will mention too, because I'm very proud of this, of those 15 million podcasts, 38,000 of them have managed to make it to the entertainment database, IMDb. Of those 38,000, Two Opinionated is ranked number 82. Really proud of that. We're just a father and son team. Most of those shows ahead of us, much bigger budget. It's your Marvels, your Disneys, Joe Rogan's, those type of shows. So for us to be in the top 100 out of 15 million, or 38,000, whichever one you want to look at, we're really proud of that. And that's all because of you guys. When we started the show, we just wanted a way as a father and son to do something together. So that was our goal. You guys made it so that we were actually successful. We appreciate that so much. Thank you guys. I'm going to shut up now. Until next time. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm once again here to ask for your support. It's been a big year for the Two Opinionated podcast. Back in February, we got to live out a dream, moderate for William Shatner here in our hometown. In May, we passed 100,000 downloads on our YouTube channel, and we followed that up in June with 50,000 downloads on the audio side. We recently posted our 600th episode, which is pretty good volume for just a father and son operation. Not too many podcasts can keep that volume up. We've been doing this now for 4.5 years, 600 plus episodes. We recently hit 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, which is a really big deal for us because we've always gotten the views, but have struggled to get people to subscribe. So that 1,000 was a big deal for us. And best of all, we were recently named one of the top podcasts on IMDb, which is the entertainment database. those that are ahead of us, we came in at number 82. Those that are ahead of us are bigger companies like Disney, mostly Marvel, and Joe Rogan, that type of podcast. So for us, being just a small West Virginia father and son podcast, to be in the top 100 out of 15 million, it's a pretty big deal for us. So thank you for everything you've done for us so far. Got a couple little ways, though, that you can help us, and they're free and they're really easy. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel yet, please go to YouTube. It's under MeisterCon Pod. Just hit subscribe. It's free, doesn't cost you anything, really helps us a ton. And maybe even more important, if you could go to imdb.com, look up the Two Opinionated podcast, and just look around the page. Just having that traffic on the page really helps us out. So that's a couple easy ways that you can support us, even if you're not listening or watching all of the time. And we want you to listen and watch, because I think that our guest list, I would put up against anybody, any other show, podcast, anybody out there. I think our guest list holds up. So please check us out. You probably will find somebody that you like, or maybe somebody that you didn't know you liked, but kind of discovered them on there. There's tons of that. If you're into music, we have that too. If you like books, we've got authors on there. If you're more into what goes on behind the scenes in the entertainment world, we've got producers, directors, video artists, anything you can think of that happens behind the scenes, we've had them on the show. So definitely check us out. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.